Welcome to Bump Set Chat, the podcast where volleyball professionals come on and share their stories, experiences, and advice. And today I am super excited. I have Jen Spicher, the CEO of PVF. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I really appreciate you coming on. And the way we start things off was with some random questions. So you ready?
Yeah, sure.
All
Fire
right.
away.
So you can see any musician or band, past or present. Who would you like to see?
Oh, wow. Past or present? Led Zeppelin.
Okay. Second question. What's one TV show or movie you watched too many times?
Yellowstone.
Oh, that's good, isn't it?
It's just too good.
Did you like the prequels too? The 1883?
I watched 1883 twice. I was into Landman, and then because of the travels of volleyball and the new season, I kind of got out of that. So I'm waiting to kind of, binge that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love them all, and so disappointed that Kevin Costner left, and
I know.
excited to see what they do with Rip and Beth, baby.
Yeah. That prequel 1883 was so good. Oh man, that was just, I can't imagine what that life was like for those people trekking across the US. That's crazy.
I love Taylor Sheridan's storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I love his one-liners, and I don't care what you say about the man. He's obviously extremely talented, but to bring it all kind of full circle at the end, where literally they gave the land back to the people that they took. It was just, and they foreshadowed that in 1883,
Yep.
and it was just impressive. I mean, I don't have that side of my brain that turns on like that.
No. And yeah, and Landman, man, Billy Bob Thornton is so good. Those, like you were just talking about, those one-liners, when he goes on, it's just like, wow, that one hits.
No, that's definitely Yellowstone.
Yeah,
absolutely. Now, if you were to say a movie, it would be Pretty Woman.
Okay, all right, there we go. And last question: You're heading out to your favorite place to eat. What are you getting?
Ooh, that's good. I'm torn between a filet and pasta.
Okay,
so we're gonna go with the 7-ounce filet.
All right, there we go. All right, well, welcome to the podcast. So originally, let's start going back at the beginning. Where are you from?
I am originally from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I was born and raised on a farm in a little town called Ann Arbor, and butts up next to Saline, and that's where I went to high school all 12 years.
Oh wow! And now, when did you discover volleyball?
So I started playing in the 7th grade because that's when you could. I played basketball during the fall and volleyball in the winter because it was a winter sport back then. And then in the spring, I rode horses and grew up on a farm. We had 180 head of cattle and 25 horses in the barn. Wow. And so in the summers, I would do 4-H and ride my horse and, be outside.
Yep. That's a novelty a lot, it seems, for a lot of kids these days, Oh,
yeah.
Yep. And now, growing up playing volleyball, did you end up wanting to play volleyball in college, or it was just a side thing when you went to college?
No, I had a desire.
Yep.
I made the district team, the district varsity team, when they pull up kids from the lower levels for districts. I made that my freshman year. And then sophomore year, I was on varsity, we won a state championship. And I knew then I wanted a full ride, and I wasn't going to let up until I got it. I remember setting out 300 VHS tapes, Barry. That's how old I am.
Wow. I'm right there with you.
VHS tapes. I mean, I set them to UOP, Hawaii, you name it. And little did I know that a vertical jump was important back then. And so I ended up playing D2, which was just fine. I ended up downtown Detroit. I mean, can you imagine going from a farm?
Oh my God.
In rural Ann Arbor, Michigan to downtown Detroit and living downtown Detroit and all that comes with that.
Yep.
And it was, it was a growing experience. It was a learning experience. I loved it. Played all 4 years at Wayne State University. We were pretty good my sophomore and junior year, and then graduated from Wayne State.
Yeah, I'm still shocked at 300 VHS tapes you sent out. That's crazy. Wow.
Yep, I sent them to everybody, and I know Michigan told me I was too short, and I wasn't going to hear about it, so I just kept going and going.
And what position did you play?
Well, in college, I was recruited as a middle. That's where I played in high school.
Yep.
And then in college, I played played right front or opposite now. My freshman year, I played middle my sophomore. I played outside my junior, and I went back to middle my senior.
Okay. And then, what is the hook volleyball has on you, that sucked you in at an early age. And then you look at now, you're leading a league.
Well, volleyball is just the best team sport,
Yep.
period. Like, we don't even have to say anything more.
Yep.
Right. You can't do it with one person. You truly, truly need a team and a group of individuals all focused on the same, end result. And I just love the team aspect of it, particularly where it's grown to,
Mhm.
and in club volleyball. I mean, when I played, we didn't, do the huddle after every play.
Yeah.
Certainly we were a very tight knit group, but we didn't do the huddle after every play. And, no matter what, with volleyball, something really cool happens every single point.
Yep.
And you take 2 seconds to celebrate or to, cheer your team on to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other aspect is the bench. My gap between, coming back to volleyball, seeing the colleges, the benches, even on the PVF level, all those girls are excited to be there, which you don't see in other professional sports.
Yeah, no, they're crazy.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
love it.
Yeah, definitely. And then, after college, did you end up playing any more volleyball, or did you sort of step away for a while?
No, I played in what would you call the beer leagues,
Yeah.
I guess. I actually set for men's teams
Oh,
because
shoot.
I was tall, so I could set, and setters were a little more scarce back then.
Yeah.
So I set for a lot of men's, club teams and tournament teams, and played a lot of co-ed and played a few times with, women's leagues on maybe Tuesdays or whatever. But I loved it. I played until I actually was 6 months pregnant with my first child. So I played until I was 34 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. Volleyball is one of those sports where it is truly a sport that you can totally play in a co-ed aspect. You can play with, you play through your entire life.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it is.
And then I understand you stepped in and did some coaching too at some point.
Yeah, my daughter was in the club volleyball scene, and she was 13, and we were in one of those larger clubs where, you're not sure who you're going to get to coach you.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, the coach had been teaching the kids incorrectly. She was, putting the setter right behind the right front blocker and not having them play any perimeter or even rotation
Oh,
defense.
God.
And, my child was 13. She was about to go to be a freshman. If she's taught incorrectly, it's competitive enough that she might not make the squad.
Oh, yeah.
So I reached out to the club director and I said, hey, can you have a coach come over and fix this? And he's like, it's between you and the coach. And I'm like, well, this coach was, I guess, young enough that, she would have taken offensively because I, played, and then she's going to take it out of my kid. And I, you know what, I'm not doing that. So a bunch of us ended up leaving, starting our own club.
Oh,
and
wow.
I got coerced into coaching. And you know what, it was probably the best 7 years I've ever done, because I was traveling a ton for work.
Yeah.
And I've always traveled. My husband was a stay-at-home dad and raised our children because I was traveling all the time. And so it was a special time for my daughter and I to really bond. And I'm so glad that we did it. And, that team that I took, a lot of times club teams, they change up.
Mm-hmm.
And, the kids that I had, we knew they weren't going D1. They wanted to have a great experience.
Yeah.
I loved them. They loved me. And we stuck together, I think, 4 or 5 years, the core of them.
Wow. That is so cool. Yeah. The
And
one
never had a bad parent, which
Wow,
is amazing.
That is amazing. Absolutely. Yeah, that's the one thing I really love about the bond my daughter and I have. Driving her, it's just her and I driving, and you use so much car time, and it's a special.
As long as
thing.
you can get them out of their phone.
Yes, exactly. Or get those AirPods out. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And now, after that stint, you went on, you're professional. When did you find out about the PVF?
So I got a phone call in late April of 2022. To be honest, my senior year in college, all 4 years of college, I was part of my day drinking funds. I was the secretary in the football office. And my senior year, the defensive coordinator was a gentleman by the name of Dave Winham. And Dave and I were good friends. Dave, as you know, is one of the founders of Pro Volleyball Federation. And long story long, he and I hung out in Detroit. We worked for the Illich organization, both of us. And he left the city of Detroit around 99, ended up down south doing, working in professional sports and entertainment. And he called me in late April of 2022. And he said, I'm about 6 months out from announcing Pro Volleyball Federation, and I want you to come run it. And I basically said, why me? And he said, why not? He's like, you played volleyball, you understand the level of game. You understand you've been a recruiter for 25 years. You've done global sales. You've ran large global companies for Kelly Services and many others. He said, and your last name is Spicher.
Natural fit.
It was.
And now, with 6 months to go coming on board, how much of the groundwork was already in place? Did they have players lined up and things like that?
No, actually, I came on board around June 2022. We didn't announce the league until November of 2022. And then we didn't play for another 13, 14 months.
Okay.
So one of my primary responsibilities was I recruited 4 players, my initial kind of player relations associates, to help me recruit, and basically connect with the top 500 athletes, American athletes that, were overseas and were not necessarily playing because they didn't want to be overseas.
Right.
That year, there was 324 women that had signed a visa and were in Europe or Brazil or wherever. And we got that list and we just started going down it. And every 2 days I had two calls. I had a call at noon, a call at 4, because you've got time zone issues and players in Europe practicing, when you're, late at night and whatnot. And we just went to town, and the first season, we had 128 players show up to training camp.
Oh, wow. And now, prior to joining the PVF, you had a successful resume of, business, building up teams and producing great results, as you were saying. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that track record you have?
Yeah, so I started in IT recruiting back before Y2K, when, everybody thought that computers were going to crash. So, I was an IT recruiter in 97, 98, 99, and that was the boom years, if you will, in IT. And I quickly moved up the corporate ladder. I became a director of recruiting and had, 60 recruiters underneath me. And then I moved over and I took a flailing office of Kforce in Michigan and took over the Michigan market. And we went from the worst office to the President's Cup winner in 2 years. And if you know anything about Kforce, they're extremely competitive. So it was right up my alley. I loved it. And just continue to build, with larger companies each time, larger roles each time, to my last position, which I was a global revenue officer for a company called Level Up. And they're a global company and they do a number of human capital workforce solutions. And I took that job and I was employee number 2 in my division.
Oh, shoot.
And when I left, we had 15 in sales and marketing and we were, more than doubling year over year our sales.
Yeah. I guess, what was it that resonated with you to join the PVF? Because you're leaving a job that was very stable, very large, and then not only convincing you, but then convincing the family, hey, I'm going to do this startup.
Oh, convincing the husband was a thing. It was definitely a thing. You know what? My love of volleyball, my love of mentoring women, my love of the business world. I've obviously done startups, meaning the companies were more mature.
Yeah.
But the actual sales and marketing function was a complete redo. I did it at Kelly with a certain group. I did it at Talent Wave with a certain group. I did it at Level Up with a certain group. So I'd done it a number of times and built. So that didn't scare me a bit. But my best girlfriend coming out of college, who's still my best girlfriend to this day, she went to Europe. And I was the one that would get the phone calls of her crying late at night because she was so upset and dissatisfied and being treated poorly or the training wasn't there, just unhappy.
Yeah.
And, I understood what that was. And I understood what these women were missing out on by not having a WNBA or an NWSL. And, I trusted the founders and I believed in what we were doing and I believed in my, ability to get it done. And here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's I've heard that echo from a bunch of the players that have gone overseas about, calling home crying and, Shina Joseph, who was in part of the Orlando Valkyries, talking about, Bulgaria and it's places that were, just a lot different, not like home. And
and you're a lot of these teams, you're the only American.
Yeah.
Right. And you might be the only one that doesn't speak the language.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's difficult all by itself.
Yeah. Absolutely. And now, getting this off the ground, were there any key players that were instrumental in bringing, other players on? Like, this is legit. This is, something you can trust us. This is going to be happening.
Yeah. Morgan Hentz, Tori Dilfer, Stringer, Ronica Stone, Jenna Rosenthal. Those were my kind of ride or die That was my group. And, we would talk almost every day, and, everybody had a group of people that they needed to reach out to directly, and, get them onto a call with myself. And I would kind of go through everything and, tell them how it was going to look, how it was going to feel, what they could expect, pay, housing, travel, all of it. And, here we are, year 2. And I don't know if you saw the numbers from the week 1, but we blew it.
Yeah.
We just blew it it went out of the park. It was awesome.
Yeah. The excitement on those early days must have been just so amazing. Just, like from those players that have played overseas, and now here's this potential. We're going to be playing at home in front of our families.
Yeah. Well, for them, I can't speak for them, but I'm sure you talked to Berkeley Oblad. I'm sure she shared.
Oh yeah.
That was a young lady that called me and said, "Hey, I live in Vegas. I'd love to stay in Vegas." And I'd never heard of Berk, just because she was on the West Coast, and I'm in,
Right.
I'm in a Big Ten girl, if you will. And then she and I jumped on the phone, and I made myself available, and I chatted through what it was going to be like or feel like, or what she could expect, medical wise, training wise, all of it. And she got in touch with the then head coach, Fran Flory. And she's a part of the Vegas Thrill, and that's a perfect example of a phenomenal, talented player who wasn't playing because she didn't want to spend 9 months in Europe, away from family and friends.
Leading the league, in its early stages, sort of what leadership principles sort of have you leaned on the most, that have helped you the most to get the league off the ground and to where it is now?
Really, it's all about do what you say you're going to do. For me, that has been my mantra. You promise something, you got to come through with it. And so that's, I think, what we've done. We've promised these ladies a base salary minimum of $60,000. They have it. We promised them healthcare and medical benefits in year 2. They have that. We promised them that they'd be traveling, by air, as long as it was more than 250 miles from airport to airport. They're doing that. They're staying in 4-star accommodations. We're requiring the teams to house the visiting team in a 4-star hotel, with the full service restaurant. They're in that. And the reason I know is because I've stayed in every one of the hotels that we're asking our players to stay in.
Nice. And those check marks alone have got to be enough to bring the girls home.
Well, again, our first draft, we drafted 35 players. Some of the players that we drafted, Barry, weren't even aware we were having a draft.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like, I tell this story about Reagan Cooper. God love her. She was asleep in the middle of the draft. Jimmy Burrow calls her dad because they coached together, gets her on the phone, and she's like, what? Oh, okay. And now she's the rising star of the year.
Oh, wow. That is so
cool.
That's
a perfect story. So of the 35 players we drafted, 30 of them showed up to training camp.
Yep.
And all 35 had the opportunity to go to Europe and play in Europe.
Yep.
And this year, right, of the 40 players that we drafted, I think two didn't show up.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent numbers. And what challenges did you guys face that first season to get it off the ground?
Well, the biggest challenge was timing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think everybody knows this. They've all heard this. Vegas was late to announce, which means then their arena was late to close, which then puts your schedule behind, which then until you have a schedule, you can't really talk to TV partners.
Yeah.
And then until the TV partners are signed, then you can't really say to your sponsors, this is where, this is what you're going to be on. You're going to be on this station and this station and this station. And so, that's kind of what we faced in year 1. The good news is all that's been rectified in year 2 with our deals, extended deal with CBS Sports Network, our 2 hours that we're getting on CBS for our all-star match, which is happening February 22nd at 1:30 Eastern, the very first ever professional women's volleyball in the United States all-star match is happening on CBS.
That's awesome.
We signed Roku, which just came out.
I just heard that.
FS1 and FS2, which also just came out. We've already had 2 matches one on FS2, one on FS1. Those were super exciting. So, last year we had 10 total national broadcasts. This year we are at 45.
Oh, wow.
48. That's 4X.
Yep.
That's Absolutely. 4X. And so if that's any indication of where this league is going, super pumped.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that, I love the fact that was that first season we were able to watch the games on YouTube, because that enabled so many people who either cut the cord or whatnot, and just it made it so accessible for the kids to watch it. They didn't have to go to mom and dad to subscribe to something to watch professional volleyball.
Yeah. No, the YouTube matches are great, and the funniest part is the following of the chat.
Yes.
The live chat's great. I mean, I don't follow it very often, right? Occasionally I'll catch it here or there.
Yeah.
But it's really a kind of a community. These people love it. And the fact that we've put so many, matches behind a paywall now, I get that they're upset by that, but this is the business.
Absolutely.
This is the revenue side of putting this league together.
Yep.
We're getting revenue from these opportunities, and that's what's going to make us sustainable.
Yep, absolutely. And you're reflecting on that first season, what were some of the biggest successes of the league that you found? Like that first week, for example, you guys had, in Nebraska, thousands of people showed up to sell out. It was just so awesome to see.
Yeah, I think the first 3 matches having over 25,000 people in paid attendance was amazing. This past a week, we put it out on an infographic yesterday. We had over 45,000 people at our first 6 matches. I mean, that's a huge average attendance number. Huge.
Yeah.
So we're super, super stoked about that. We had over 350,000 people watch our YouTube stream. We reached over 1 million when it comes to, our social reach on our matches. So all of those numbers just, literally tripling has been really exciting in year 2.
Yeah. And now with year 2, any changes or innovations we're going to see? Any rule changes or anything like that?
Yeah. So first of all, we've expanded by 1 team. The Indy Ignite started, and they came in with a bang last Saturday. I don't know if you watched that match, but I was physically there, and it was electric.
Nice.
It was one of the coolest opening nights I've been to. They had all of their mascots. They had our mascot Pepper and Nitro and all the other mascots from Indianapolis there. It was super fun. The fans were stoked to be there. I think that in and of itself is a success. The fact that we've increased from 24 matches per team to 28, so that each of our teams, instead of 12 home opportunities for revenue generation, now they have 14. Obviously, our deals with our broadcast partners that have increased. Getting our semifinal and final matches again on CBS Sports Network, but on May 9th and 11th. So we moved it up a little bit earlier, but instead of having, last year we had it on Wednesday and Saturday. Now we're having it on Friday and Saturday, which is terrific.
Yeah.
We've yet to announce our venue for the championships, but we're super, super excited about where we're going. And we think that it's going to pull a lot of fans. Having an all-star game, the first ever, is growth. I mean, we're doing things that are pushing the envelope. As far as, rule changes, I think some of the fans have already seen it and have witnessed it, but we moved the R2 to behind the scoreboard. We have 22 cameras on that court. It ain't missing a net.
Nope.
Right? And if it does, if the coach catches it, then they challenge it and we go back and we look at it. But, we've talked to a number of people at FIVB. Our director of officials, Devaney McClarty, has a number of mentors and a number of people that she speaks with as head of officials. And they have all said to us, you guys are doing the right thing. You are pushing the game forward. This is the way of the future. You guys are just getting there first. And that's what we're super excited about.
Yeah. Well, that first season for you guys to use Bolt 6, I think that was an awesome addition. And it just made things, it takes the judgment calls out of linesmen. And with that ball being hit so hard, you're going to miss some things, but not with Bolt 6.
We did the research, and with the NCAA volleyball with line judges, we found out that 48% of the time the calls were reversed.
Wow.
And that's why, and not to mention the amount of time it took to get there. With 22 cameras, and granted, Bolt 6 was a huge investment for our owners to undertake in the first year, but it was well worth it. Our average, well, first of all, you can't challenge in or out.
Yeah.
Because the call comes back in 0.03 seconds, which is amazing. Last year, our average challenge averaged about 33 seconds. And as you know, in the NCAA college game, it's nowhere near that.
It could be a couple of minutes sometimes.
So pace of play is important. We did a study and research after our first weekend, our first 6-7 games, I think it is. We just did a calculation, and 28 seconds is where we're at right now for average challenge.
Yeah.
So putting the R2 behind the R1, they're mic'd directly, right? The R2's mic'd directly to bolt 6. They're mic'd directly to volley station. They're all hooked up. And I think it's going to continue to speed up the pace of play, which is all kinds of good for our athletes.
For you talked a little bit about the All-Star game. So how is that format going to be? Is there going to be any skills competition, or that maybe down the road?
We're still working through that. We're probably looking at 3 sets.
Yeah.
Because we only have 2 hours on CBS, and we have to make sure we allow for their timeouts and some fan engagement and some interviews and things like that. But rest assured, our top broadcasters will be on the mic, Paul Sunderland and Holly McPeak. And we'll have some sideline reporting with Madison Fitzpatrick and others. It's going to be a fun fan engagement type of event. If you're in and around Indianapolis, I highly encourage you to buy your tickets. Tickets went on sale Monday. We've already sold, a number of seats. You need to get them now because they're going to go fast. But yeah, it's going to be fun, and we're excited for the match to happen and to continue to push forward in the volleyball in the United States.
Excellent. And then, speaking of volleyball in the United States, how does PVF differentiate itself from the other leagues? I know one key factor is ownership is, separate.
Yep. So Athletes Unlimited is a great product. It's a 5-week season. They play it in one market. It's more of an individual type thing. I love the format. I go out there at least one weekend a year to watch them. And it's a fantastic opportunity for some of our athletes to play in both leagues and stay sharp in their skills. But I really don't see athletes as a competitor, right? Now, League One, on the other hand, as y'all know, they're playing at the same time we are. They're, again, different business model. We are franchise owned. Each team is owned by a separate, group or entity, whereas League One is owned by kind of, one firm. They kind of run everything from, corporate. And we have owners and ticket people and community relations people that live and have born and raised in the markets that they are doing business in. And so they know what's going to work in Atlanta versus Columbus versus Orlando versus, Vegas.
Yeah.
And so that's so important when it comes to getting a team, ingrained into your culture.
Yeah.
Like the Indianapolis team, Indy Ignite, they just went to a Colts game. And they got them all on social media, walking into a Colts game and, talking to the Colts players. And last night, guess what? They were at a Pacers game.
Nice.
That isn't something that's constructed by me or my team at the league.
Right.
That's done by the Indy owners and the Indy marketing team and the Indy president. And that's exactly the way it should be. Yeah. They're ingraining themselves into their market as much or as little as they want. And that's exactly what we want to do.
Yeah. Well, it's the same model that you have in the NBA, NHL, NFL, and clearly those work because, they're all doing well and being successful.
Yeah.
And now if you had to describe the second season in one word, what's it going to be?
Successful.
Excellent. And now, are there any initiatives or programs in place for the player development or community outreach, for the second, in the second season?
So we are actually working on that. We have PVF Serves, which is kind of our, nonprofit give back. Again, we're wanted to roll that out a little earlier. We had so much coming at us last year that we, had to table it. But our community relations person is Kimberly Kershaw. She's got over 30 years in sports and entertainment, and she's working diligently. And we're going to be rolling out some initiatives here in the very near term, even for season 2. But yeah, that's definitely something we're looking at.
Excellent. And now, the other thing I think is fantastic is, we have all these great college athletes. They're wrapping up, they're graduating. What's the elevator pitch for you to, hey, come to the PVF?
Well, I got to be honest. It's not too difficult to keep them away and not away, but to not have them go to Europe.
Yep.
Right. I think they've seen the product. They've seen the attendance. They've seen the fan engagement. And so the sell isn't super difficult. It's just making sure that they play where they want to play.
Yeah.
And I think that happened last year. You saw a number of teams switch up, personnel, right? Like, for example, I think Grand Rapids has 4 people that resigned from the previous team. We wanted to give players a chance to go home.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happened. Look at the Indy Ignite roster. almost every one of those players either played at Purdue or lives or is from Indiana, with the exception of a few.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome.
Same is true with other teams. And so people reset, and we're able to kind of go where they wanted to go. And, I want these players happy.
Yep.
Happy players makes great professionals, makes great competition, makes a very successful league.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And now, with professional athletes, there's not necessarily a shift, but they're starting to put a prioritization on the welfare of the player. You touched on a couple of things that you guys do for your players. What both professionally and personally, what are some of the highlights that you guys do to take care of these players?
Well, first of all, we obviously hired OnRise, which is a mental health awareness group that do a wonderful job. And every single one of our players and coaches can reach out at any time. And that is picked up, by each of the teams. And that is an annual subscription. So we gave that to them. I think it was the 1st of September, and it run through this September 1st. So I think that's important, is just, mental health and awareness. Obviously, we provided medical dental benefits. There was one thing I was going to say. I forget what it was.
Housing or?
Oh, we give them housing.
Yeah.
Yep. We provide housing for them. As you know, we provide all their on and off-court travel apparel through Ren. Our partner, Ren Athletics, delivers 1,215 pieces for each team. Wow. We love our Ren Athletics partners, and the girls love the product that's so soft, and they think it's terrific. So yeah, just treating them right, treating them appropriately. Each team has an athletic trainer, obviously full time.
Mm-hmm.
This year we hired a medical director, and they created a 70-page medical manual that shares with the athletes and the teams all the rules that are created around having a medical team with you at all times while you're, in the home market,
mm-hmm.
and then certain people that travel with you while you're away. And all of that is just caring for the athletes and making sure that their bodies are taken care of.
Nice. And now, so we talked a little bit on the outreach earlier you guys are working with there. Are you guys, with volleyball, volleyball is such a grassroots, thing in the United States. Are you guys working locally with the clubs too to sort of, expose it to kids and sort of get more of a fan base?
We're not necessarily like League Ones, where they're buying clubs.
Yeah.
They don't, junior club volleyball is doing just fine.
Yeah.
Right. They don't need us, so to speak. But each team does work locally in their market to work with their local clubs as to, maybe do camps and things like that, invite kids out, whatever it is. But again, it's not league driven.
Right.
It's not a league mandate. It's each team needs to do what's right for their local community.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because, certainly there's a lot of girls and dads at the matches. But there's also a lot of fans that just think this sport is really cool. And we've converted them because they've never seen volleyball before. And now they're seeing it on television.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's what we're about. We're about converting the unconverted. And we are absolutely doing that when we have, 6,500 in Indianapolis on the first night of the match ever.
Awesome.
Right? We had 9,000 in Grand Rapids. We had 13,500 in Omaha. Vegas, they had their opener Friday night, but their attendance on Sunday was better.
Yep.
Because more families attended.
Well, and that's the other thing. I think, you touched on a good point. Like, the high school parents who see their daughters play or their sons play, they see that level. But to see professional U.S. volleyball at the level that it is, they're dropping jaws.
It's fast.
It is.
These ladies are athletic. They're strong. They're powerful. And, it's a quick game. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think volleyball is one of the few sports that is on par with the men's side. The women's side and the men's side is the same action, same level of intensity that, you don't see from the other sports, I think.
Well, I'd actually, and I've said this before, I'd actually argue that the women's game is more watchable.
Yep.
Because it's, there's more rallies. Don't get me wrong, love the men's game, but it's quick. And there aren't as many rallies in the men's game as there are in the women's.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like women's, you can see a 20-touch rally versus men. It's the serve, set, kill, and it's okay. Maybe a block. Yeah,
a block.
Yeah, a block. Yeah, absolutely. So now, the PVS is a part of a broader movement to grow professional women's sports. How does the league view its role in that sort of larger effort?
Well, I mean, we're doing it, right? we're doing it. And we have a duty to these women that we've promised we're going to continue to do it. And, me personally having recruited, like I said, the first group of athletes, and we had, 80% of our athletes returned.
Yeah.
Right. Some of them didn't make a roster. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
some of them, I think we had 5, 6, 7, maybe 7 athletes go to League One, and that's fine, because 5 of those 7 athletes went home to play at home.
Yep.
Home where we didn't have a team.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful, because that's exactly what we built the sport for, is that you can play at home in front of your family and friends. So, I applaud them all for doing what was best for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just doing it and continuing to put this product out, year after year, and growing it. I expect we'll add 2 more teams next year. I think that maybe 2 a year is probably the right number to ensure the quality and the pace of play stays at the level we want it to. As you know, this year we've allowed 3 international players instead of 2. So we increased that. And I think most teams have 3. We changed the rule on Puerto Rican players. Puerto Rican players last year were considered international, but they're U.S. citizens.
Right.
Right. And so one of the things that we altered was the rule on who is considered an international player. And what we said is if you need a work visa to work in the United States, then you're an international player. So a player who has dual citizenship wouldn't be considered international, even though she might have Federation of Origin, be from a different country.
Yeah.
It's about the work visa.
All right. And now, speaking of the international players, is there any, anything on the roadmap at some point to sort of like work or do some collabs with the international leagues that are over in Europe or whatnot?
You know what? We've had a couple of reach outs to come and play in a tournament. Unfortunately, because we are playing our season now, it's really hard to interrupt our season, given the schedule's already out, to allow a team to travel and then try to get them back here in time for the match that they have to prepare for. We are a match for $1 million. We are giving away $1 million at the end of the season, just like we did last year. And last year we gave the $1 million went to the players.
That's huge.
The players decided how they were going to divvy it up. Right. And that is going to happen again this year. And, a team doesn't really want as much as it would be fun, but doesn't really want to necessarily take their focus off the season and their opponents to go maybe to Turkey to play in a tournament over the weekend.
Right.
Right. And as you know, we're boxed in.
Yes.
Right. We're boxed in by the NCAA and the national team gym requirements.
Yep.
And so people, I've heard, the social media, like, why'd you do your draft on the Monday of Thanksgiving? Well, when else are you going to do it?
Exactly. The NCAA just wraps up or whatnot.
Well, it was right after the mid-majors were done, right? All the mid-major colleges were done. The selection tournament was the following Sunday, right? And I mean, if we're being smart about the best public relations time to do it, you would never do it on the Monday of Thanksgiving.
No.
Right? That's the dumbest move ever. But and even our PR guy, Rob Carolla, is like, yeah, it's not so great for, but you know what? It turned out just fine.
Yep.
And, you can't wait. You don't want to do it while the girls are in the tournament. And then if you wait until the 18th, they're all going back. It's just the only time to do it, unfortunately for us, because we are boxed in, is that kind of that time frame. And I'll tell you, Barry, we decided to do it. And then we put it out there in the world, and everybody was like, well, we're going to watch it. We're going to watch it. We're going to watch it. And so I said, guys, we got to do this live. And they were like, what? We're not doing this live. Are you crazy? And I'm like, come on, we can do it. We get the right partners. We can do it. And I think my team was mad at me for about 3 weeks until we actually pulled it off the day of, and it went off pretty much without a hitch. There was a couple glitches. I actually thought Madison and Holly did a phenomenal job of hosting the show. And, we did it. And the girls were excited. I think next year you'll see a lot more of in-home player interviews right now that, again, year 1, they didn't even know we were having a draft.
Right.
Year 2, we had a draft, but we could have gotten better with player interviews. I'm well aware of that.
But nobody knew it was happening. So it was like, I know.
Right. And so year 3, it's going to get even better than that. So, we're crawling, walking, running.
Yeah, absolutely. For you, what has been the proudest moment as the CEO of PVF so far?
I was really emotional at the championship. in all that we had accomplished. I have a very small but mighty team, and we accomplished an awful lot. And I was just so proud of them. We had a lot of challenges and a lot of obstacles that we had to overcome in year one that most leagues wouldn't have had to overcome. And I was just really, I was nervous as hell. Don't get me wrong. but I was really, really proud of getting to that moment and seeing the women. The semifinals were both 5-set matches.
I mean, can't ask for anything more than that.
Can't ask for anything better.
Right.
I mean, that was amazing. And then to put together and pull together at a fabulous award show that everybody loved. It was, everybody said it was the right amount of time. It was the right amount of speaking, and everybody, had a chance to kind of say a few words, and, to have Paul and Madison there, that was terrific. The next day we followed up with a fan fest. That was super fun. And then, to be standing in the championship, awarding, the championship trophy, and then the MVP, and then of course the $1 million check. That was a really cool moment. So just pride of what our team accomplished.
Yeah. Yeah, something I wanted to touch on. I thought that was really cool. I think I was talking to Amy Pauley that after the before the second season or after the first season, you guys basically wiped the rosters and let people build from scratch again. I thought that was a really, really smart move.
Well, we wanted to make sure that both players and coaches could get what they needed. And like I said, a lot of players wanted to try something different, and that's fine. Right? It's hard enough playing in a league that's brand new, let alone in a city that you maybe don't necessarily want to be in.
Right.
Right. But because of the limited amount of spaces and jobs that we had, people kind of had to go where they were asked to go.
Yep.
And so, allowing everybody to reset. And it was also a way for Indianapolis to be competitive. Right? To make sure that they could be competitive by kind of saying everybody's a free agent. Now, did we take some risks? Yes, because Europe was signing players left and right already, and we weren't really able to sign players until I think it was July 1st. We're doing it a little bit differently this year. Players are with their current teams are able to sign, with their current teams, and they certainly can take an opportunity to go somewhere else next year. But again, it's what's best for the players.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one buoy that I constantly steer my ship towards is what is best for the athletes.
Excellent. And now, speaking of the athletes in volleyball, what do you think is in your opinion, what's the state of volleyball today?
Growing. I mean, by leaps and bounds.
Yep.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. So, all tides rise ships.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys struck at the perfect time, it seemed, with Nebraska having that 90,000 people event, and then pro volleyball kicking off in the US. And it's just, you guys are riding that wave. It's awesome.
Yeah. No. Well, and this is 12 years in the making. Our founders would tell you that they've been thinking about indoor women's professional volleyball for a dozen years. And, it was about 3.5 years ago that the execs at Bally's and ESPN and the Big Ten Network told us that, women's college volleyball was rising in viewership by leaps and bounds amongst the other sports. And then I think at the same time, Kathy DeBoer, the then AVCA chairman, who is now, no longer with AVCA, but, she shared that there were more girls playing volleyball in the state of Texas than there were boys playing football in the states of Florida and Ohio combined.
Wow.
And it was then that they said, it's time.
Yep.
We're going to build this. And like anything you build, you start off with all the pillars that you need. You need staff, you need owners, you need markets, you need venues, you need partners, you need broadcasting partners, you need sponsors, and you just start to tick the boxes away and check all the boxes. And, that's how we built this league. And, again, super excited about being in year 2. I could not be any more excited about the results from week 1. Packed stands, phenomenal fan engagement, fantastic play. The athletes are really into it and playing at a very high level, very fast paced. So we're pumped about year 2.
Excellent. Yeah. For me, for coming back into volleyball and seeing, starting this podcast, I had Shannon Windsor on, coach of Team Canada. And when I was on, I was shocked to hear that she is the only female coach at that level. But you look through U.S. colleges, the PVF, you guys are there's women coaches there. It's just at that level. I was shocked when Shannon told me that.
Yeah, we were very mindful of our coaching selections, but ultimately, just so you know, I mean, my team, my volleyball operations team, Dr. Cecile Renaud, Lori Corbelli, Logan Tom, they were preparing a coach's list and sending it to the owners. The owners chose.
Yep.
Ultimately, the owners chose who they were hiring as their coaches. It wasn't us. And, for us, obviously, there were some strong candidates that happen to be female and are currently, engaged as coaches in Pro Volleyball Federation. So very, very proud of that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So a fun question here. So I had Eric Shoji on a while ago, and him and Taylor Averill have this thing. What's the toughest position in volleyball?
Oh,
so Jen,
that's easy.
All right. I'm thinking it's going to be a middle or a setter. Since you're a middle, are you going with middle?
Of course I'm going with middle. Half the time you're wrong. It's like being a weatherman. Like, how do you succeed? Like, oh, by the way, if you don't close the block, then everybody's yelling at you.
Yeah.
Of course it's a middle. People, it's not even a question. Come on.
All right. And then I had Christian Huron, who's the PME. He's the TikTok guy.
Yeah, I know who he is.
When the VNLs had him go around and sort of, make TikToks, and he actually had one that he was hitting the Team USA people with. What is the easiest position in volleyball?
Opposite.
Yep. That's the no-brainer answer.
All they need to do is hit.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, they got to play a little defense.
And Jen, when you're not involved with volleyball, what are some of the things you do?
Well, I have two fantastic children and a wonderful husband. I like to spend as much time with them as possible. My son is 22 and finally off the payroll. He just got in fact, he started Monday at his job. He's a manufacturing engineer in Detroit. My daughter's in school at the University of Findlay. She's pre-vet. We love side-by-sides. So
Nice.
We have two, and we do a lot of up north Michigan side-by-sides. I'm a huge avid golfer. Any chance I can, I'm playing golf. I love tournament golf. I love competitive golf.
Oh, wow.
So I like to play a lot of golf. Spending time with my friends. I've got a phenomenal neighborhood, and literally our besties are literally right across the street.
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
That's great. And then it's trouble at times.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for doing this. But before I go with past guests, I asked them to suggest somebody in your volleyball circle that would have a good story to come on and share.
Wow. Well, I would selfishly tell you to go get Morgan Hens.
Okay.
Because Morgan, the first time I called her, she told me no.
Oh.
She flat out told me no. And then I'll let her tell you the story.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to do part 2 of that. So,
yeah.
Well, hey, thank you again so much for doing this, and good luck with the rest of the season, the All-Star game, and everything else that we're going to see. And any hints on maybe where we may see some new teams next year?
Well, I think one of them has been mentioned several times before in the state of Texas.
Okay. Excellent.
And the other one is the other two are kind of up in the air. It's really who gets there first.
Yeah.
But
right.
I will tell you, Barry, I probably get 12 emails a week on interest of having a team in ABC City.
Yeah.
At least 12 a week. And it's we can't vet them fast enough.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Volleyball is growing. It's here. It's not a moment. It's a movement.
Excellent. All right. Well, Jen, again, thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Barry, thanks for having me on. Appreciate you.